Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Trigby. I will be closing your day of digital webinars. I'm broadcasting tonight from lovely Eagan, Minnesota, and I'm part of the BizzyWeb team. We are going to talk tonight about content marketing. We're going to talk about what to say. We're going to talk about how to say it. And I'm going to give you some really good insights into using words and images to craft your email messages. So before we get started, a couple of logistical things that I want to go over before we get started and really get into it. I'm going to be going at a relatively brisk pace tonight. So as I do this, it's important for you to remember how to get a hold of me in case you need this. Or you missed something, or you'd like to have me stop and come back. I will talk about how we're going to do questions in just a second. So if you need to get a hold of me, there's my beautiful mug right there. You can reach me at trigby@BizzyWeb.com, and you can and if you want to check us out on Facebook, you can reach us at facebook.com/BizzyWeb. You can also see us on Twitter at BizzyWeb.com. I'm going to take just a second to make sure that I have all of my technical stuff going and making sure that it's working. Give me just 1 second to make it work. As I do that, though, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next screen, which is our questions screen. Here's how you can ask me questions if you do it in real time. If you're listening in real time, if you use the hashtag on Twitter, BizzyWebinar, I'm going to take a couple of moments and get started. And it sounds like I'm having just a okay, perfect. Looks like everything's working just great. So if you want to ask questions in real time, the best way to do that is to go to BizzyWebinar on Twitter and use that hashtag. I'm going to be monitoring it as we're going along here, and I'll stop occasionally and ask questions. So who are we here at BizzyWeb? We are a full-service digital marketing agency. We're based in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis and St. Paul. We specialize in really just about anything under the sun as it relates to digital marketing. So we can build you a brand, we can build you a really great website that takes affirmative forward momentum and gets you actual tangible results. We also specialize in social media marketing. We specialize in search engine optimization, pay-per-click marketing, anything under the sun that can drive business to you and fill your lead funnel is what we do here at BizzyWeb. So once again, this is sponsored by Constant Contact tonight, and I'm going to have a special offer for you at the end of this, showing you exactly what you can get from Constant Contact. But the reason that we like it at BizzyWeb is that it gives you really a tremendous amount of tools for a very reasonable price as a small business owner and as a small business marketer. You can do newsletters and announcements and email marketing, which we're primarily going to be talking about today. You can create an offer and a promotion that actually makes sense to you and doesn't break the bank. You can get feedback and surveys through from your existing customers. And then finally, you can do special event registrations. If you're wondering how the special event registration works, all of you who signed up for the webinar tonight did so using a Constant Contact tool. So we think it's a great tool. That's why we like to partner with Constant Contact to do these kind of things. And even more special tonight, they're giving you a deal of 3 months of email marketing for only $5 a month. That's a tremendous deal. Generally, it's usually $25 to $30 a month, and that's $5 out the door. So if you have a list of 100,000 people, it doesn't matter. It's 5 months out the door. And by the time we're done, if you make it through and if you laugh politely while you're at home watching this, I'll show you how to do that. So what are we here to talk about today? Well, ultimately, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page before we really get crazy into digital marketing. And so I want to, as we start, I want to give you a really simple definition of what marketing is to us at BizzyWeb. You know generally what it is, but when I say the word marketing, I mean something very specific. And it's important that everybody's on the same page. My definition of marketing has 3 simple parts. Number 1, you define an audience, basically the group of people that you want to target. Number two, you reach out to them with a message that is specific to that audience. And then number three, you elicit a physical and measurable response, which are the results that you want and need your business to get. So again, the big thing that I want you to keep in mind tonight as you leave tonight, and with all of the things that you've gotten charged up for throughout the day of digital marketing that we've talked about here at Constant Contact across the Upper Midwest, is what can you really do to get actual, tangible, physical results? And that's really the measuring stick in which what I want you to think about, especially as we're talking about content creation, as we're going to do tonight. What do I mean when I say results? Well, there's a lot of different kind of results. We're talking about things as simple as more clicks to your website, more people downloading something, something like to come into the office, or even setting a new appointment, or even something as simple as picking up the phone and calling. If we do it right, we can actually tangibly create a direct line from the action we take as small business marketers to creating those results. And really, at the end of the day, we all want a little gold star by the back of our name. We want to feel like what we did was successful. The only way that we're going to do that is by defining what kind of results that we want ahead of time and make sure that we know exactly what we need to do to get there. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when we're talking about this, the real punchline to all of this is how do we gain more revenue? And we'll talk about that. So we're talking about email content, but this really actually applies to social content as well. Why? The question that I want to start with is, why is content so super important? It's because in today's day and age, content is currency. Content is how people view you. Content is how they consume you before they take any steps whatsoever into creating a relationship with you. So throughout the content that you create, you get to be a source for your readers. They get to know you, they get to like you, they get to trust you before they even decide to make a buying decision. And as I keep going through this presentation, I want you to think about the conversations you're going to be having with your customers and your clients. What kind of questions do they ask you? How can you use those questions and conversations to really create great content that you can share socially and in email? But we're here to talk primarily about email, so let's ask that big question. What type of content should you be using in your email? It's pretty simple. I like to boil it down to three very simple parts, but again, it's like playing poker. It's easy to understand that two pair loses to three of a kind, but it's hard to do well. At the end of the day, what I want you to think about boiling this down to is something as simple as words, images, and photos, which I guess is the same thing as pictures. But words, images, videos, anything that you're going to be doing is designed to attract and convert and then retain the audience that you're working with. So when you're sending out an email to the people on your contact list, you want to make sure it's relevant and interesting and includes a clear call to action. What do I mean by a clear call to action? That's the response that you are trying to solicit from your audience and the response that you're truly trying to get them to do. Ultimately, again, the big difference between marketing and advertising is a billboard. Think of how many billboards you passed going to and from work today throughout your day. Can you remember any of them? Are you apt to take an action because of that billboard that you saw? Maybe yes, but probably not. So as a small business owner and as a small business marketer, we want to make sure that we start with creating the action that we want people to take. So here's an example of an email from a company called Great Vacation Retreats. At the top of the message, they have a very clear, imaginative picture. You look at that and you think, man, I would really like to be sitting on that beach. They've got a text block that clearly tells you what exactly you're going to be doing. There's not a lot of text when you read the email, there's not a lot of text that you have to mull over in order to really get the message. And then you've got a really clear and distinct thing to do, which is to click here to view reservations, which is what these folks want us to do. So very simple, add a picture, add a paragraph, and add a call to action. But in doing so, we want to make sure that we focus on the people that we're selling to. We are all in business together, and we all know exactly what we're doing, and chances are good we're going to buy from us as opposed to anybody else. So we don't necessarily need to figure out what we're interested in. We want to figure out what our customers are going to be interested in. When you're writing content from scratch, you're not writing for you, you're writing for them. So make sure that your messages are relevant, they're short, and they're focused. So your email shouldn't be telling recipients every single thing you do. It shouldn't include any extraneous information. It should be something as simple as the conversation you've been having with your client or your customers or your potential customers after an interaction, and then use that to expand the topic. Here's the punchline when it gets into why we want to make sure that we're writing for us. Simply put, in today's day and age, people are looking for a reason not to buy from you before they buy from you. I'll say that again because I think it's crucially important. People today are looking for a reason not to buy from you. So if they get a boring email from you, 38% of the time, they're just going to unsubscribe from your email. They're never going to call. They're never going to complain. They're never going to tell you that it's boring. They're just gone. And even worse, if it's completely irrelevant or irritating, and we've all gotten those emails that we find irritating, 32% of the time, people are just going to say, sayonara, and I'm out. So we want to make sure that everything that we do is both interesting and relevant to our audience. Here's how I'm going to break this down tonight. Number one, we're going to talk about creating content. Next, we're going to talk about curating content. It's a very big difference, and I'll explain that as we go on. Number three, how do we extend the content we create to create the most maximum impact for our audience? And then lastly, I'm going to show you how to get started. So this is a good place for me to stop and pull up my phone and check Twitter, see if there's anybody who's used the hashtag BizzyWebinar. And it looks like we are all clear. So I'm going to keep going. Again, if you are out there and listening right now and you want to ask a question in real time, I encourage you to do so by using the hashtag BizzyWebinar on Twitter, and I will stop a few more times and make sure that I can answer your question in real time. So how do we start with creating content? There's a lot of different things that we can do, and I'm showing you a bunch of different words that are coming up on screen right now to give you an idea of what can you do. And it's if you're anything like me, you're looking at that and you're almost immediately feeling exhausted, going, oh my gosh, what do I do and how do I do it? Well, we're going to break this down very quickly. So we're going to start with the simple one. What are you offering somebody else has? How do we get it to them? This is really one of the biggest hurdles to clearly define what we do and how we do it. But the good news is that nobody out there knows you better than you know yourself, and there's a great world of ideas out there for you. So take a minute and think, what exactly can we do that nobody else does? What is really the most unique thing that we do that nobody else does? And then as you go on, start remembering that idea as it permeates through the rest of your updates and even the educational offerings that you might offer. Because at the end of the day, everybody wants to work with an expert. So if you can demonstrate that you are truly one of the industry experts in what you're doing, then people are going to start making those buying decisions as you start imprinting positive affirmative actions that you're asking them to do, like click here, do this, read more. Those are all demonstrating what's called thought leadership, and we're going to get into how you do that. But more importantly, we also most importantly, I should say, we also want to be entertained, and we also want to feel like we've learned something. So sometimes something as simple as providing a certain amount of irreverent content that you wouldn't necessarily do, it shows that you're a real person, and it shows that you are somebody that has real likes and feelings, and people remember that as a small business owner, they're working with you. They're not working with just anybody. So how much content is enough? How much time do you need to spend pushing out new content and constantly offering consumable information that your clients and your customers can then repeat back to you and start re-engaging with you in the sales process? Well, here's my answer. Less is more. At the end of the day, there's a certain amount of information that's great, but the more you put into it, there's sort of that fine line that if you start posting on Facebook and sending emails all the time, people start wondering, hey, what do these people do other than communicate with me? Eventually, you've got to really do the work. And more importantly, we all have time constraints. We all want to have a better relationship with time. So in order to do that, we want to make sure that we are not bothering our customers too much. So that's really the rule of thumb here. Less is more. We want to have no more than about 20 lines of text in our email. No more than that, maybe a little ahead of that. But again, ultimately, remember, we are visual animals before anything. We consume something visually before we do it. And I would ask you to think about, when was the last time you got a 4-paragraph email that you were really excited to sit down and read? If you're anything like me, the chances are that you probably never have gotten something like that. So we want to make sure that visually we know people can consume it quickly and move on. We also want to make sure that we don't have a lot of pictures. If you've ever gotten an email that has tons and tons of pictures, it seems very, very busy. Your eye sort of hurts as you're looking at it. So keep the pictures to a minimum. You want to have your logo and then have about 3 additional pictures like the example I've shown on screen here. When we get into links, that really is defines that whole less is more concept. The fewer links equal more results. So really, again, keep in mind that we have, in doing this marketing activity, we are asking our clients and customers to do one thing, maybe 2. But if we give them 3 or more to do, or even as many as 5 clicks, they're just simply not going to be able to click on exactly what we want them to do, and the options sort of decline, and we don't get the success that we want. Remember, we're asking our people to do one thing, and again, maybe 2. So everything that we want to do from our marketing effort is really dedicated to pushing people that way. Remember, though, that the most popular app on any smartphone is going to be email. Statistically speaking, most people check their email on their phone at least 10 times a day. Hopefully you haven't checked it more than once as we've been talking here tonight. But remember that statistically 50% of emails are read on a mobile device. So that means no matter how creative and how fancy it looks, people are going to be looking at it at best on a 4-inch screen. So there is a certain amount of technical expertise that goes into that. The good news is Constant Contact does a lot of that for you, so you don't have to worry about it, and you can focus mostly on your message. So we've sort of talked about why it's important and why great content is important, is valuable, but then it really still sort of begs the question of, oh my gosh, what do I do and how do I do it? I've sort of danced around it, but here's one of the bedrocks of what we're going to be talking about today that I'm going to leave you with, is something as simple as structure. When we say structure, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to create an outline of what you want to say and how you want to say it. Keep a list of topics that you're sort of always adding to. Me personally, I have a list on my phone. Every time I think of something interesting, I write it down. I secretly, what I do is I tell my wife that I'm playing Pokemon, but I'm actually seriously working. We also want to make sure that we show our expertise, and we want to do that on a regular basis. And we'll talk a little bit about what an editorial calendar is a little later. But in showing our expertise, again, that shows that we are so confident in what we're doing, that we are providing education about what we do to make people's lives better. That's going to create an affirmative response in your prospect, and they're going to feel good about calling you and starting that process because they already know that you're a good person. You want to make sure, though, finally, that it looks like you. What do I mean by that? Well, it's things like your logo, it's things like the content, it's things like the voice. You want to always make sure that it looks and it sounds like you. So I put on screen here blogs.constantcontact.com. So some really great sort of formatting ideas and how you can create your email marketing or even your social media marketing to really make sure that it is like you. Remember that if you want to compete with the big boys, like something like Coca-Cola, they're not going to be able to communicate with the everyday little people because they have just such an ocean of stuff that's going in and out of their marketing efforts. you have the opportunity to create really great results and create really great engagements with your customers and your prospects, because they're going to remember that they're buying from you, the real person. So ironically, I was going to start talking about something else, but since it's a stopping point, I'm going to pull up my phone and check and make sure that we don't have any content. Yep, we don't have any questions, but if you are interested in asking a question, feel free and go to Twitter and use the hashtag BizzyWebinar. I'd be more than happy to answer any question in real time for you. It looks like we've got a fair amount of people who are sticking with me so far, so thanks for staying up late with me here at Constant Contacts Day of Digital. So we all have what's known as FAQs, frequently asked questions. These are the things that people ask us on a regular basis as part of our jobs. And I included a couple of them here. Something as simple as, how do I make sure that my pipes won't burst this winter? That is a problem for us up here in Minnesota. Maybe you're in a warmer climate than I am right now. But it's a question that plumbers get asked on a regular basis, or a tax accountant asking, do I get to deduct mileage from work to home every day? Well, the answer is no, but there's ways around that. So I'm a beer guy. I don't have any idea how to pick the right wine, or even more importantly, how do I get more people to show up at my events? These are all sort of garden variety questions that a lot of us get asked on a regular basis. We answer pretty consistently. We've talked about the bedrock of structure. The next thing I want to encourage you to do is create questions into content. So if you see here on screen that I've actually created some email subject lines that actually answer those questions. So let's look at the first one, 5 ways to protect your pipes from freezing this winter. That does a couple of really great things. Number one, it tells me how long the email is. It's only going to be five tips. It's not going to be 18. It's not going to be 25. It's not going to be a 6-part series in protecting your pipes that's just going to make me wonder and have to Google other answers. It's 5 ways to protect your pipes. I can look at that. I can go, yep, I want to consume that. That's going to be helpful, and that's going to create that fuzzy, warm feeling that when I need a plumber, I'm going to remember that person. And a couple of other examples I got there, like answers to your top 3 mileage deduction questions. Again, using the number is fantastic because it shows exactly how long of a commitment that you're asking people to take before they even read your email. And again, on the wine front, red or white, 5 simple wine pairing tips. Again, it sort of boils it down into very simple things. And obviously, there's something to be said for nuance, and something to be said that what you are doing is important and is complex, and you want to continue that in your content as well. So again, the second really cornerstone of what, from the content perspective, is turn your questions into content. What are the frequently asked questions that you get on a regular basis, and how can you answer those questions before they're even asked? So back in the dark ages of the internet, a time in my life I like to call college, the email on the left was really that was really hot stuff. You got to put everybody's address, and everybody had their own email address in the front to field, and then you got to put a subject line, you got to write stuff, and then you got to sign it. And man, that was really neat. But what invariably happened is, if you did something like that for your small business marketing, you would send it to everybody you knew. And what would happen is that one friend, we all have that one friend who would do the absolute worst thing that would just completely ruin your entire marketing campaign. And it's something very simple. They'd click the reply all button. And then all of a sudden, emails would be flying back and forth between hundreds of people. More importantly than that, though, you can see it's not very interesting to look at. It's kind of bland. There's a lot of text. I feel sleepy just looking at it. Now, fast forward to today, on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see a lot's changed. We know exactly who we're dealing with. We're dealing with Southside Cycling because we see that logo. We're familiar with that logo. We see that gorgeous picture of somebody on a bicycle riding off into the sunset. So we're immediately thinking, man, what happens if I get on a bike? Am I going to be able to ride off into the sunset like that? and we see all the fun little accessories that we can get. But again, the call to action is something very simple. Come visit us. They've showed who they are. They've provided us with a little bit of text, and they're asking us to do something fairly simple, visit our site. So there's a big difference between just emailing people and email marketing, and that's by using that picture, paragraph, and call to action idea that I've been talking about. It's important to keep in mind that, as I've said before, that we are visual animals before anything else. We consume by seeing things first. And studies would say that 90% of the information processed by the brain is visual before anything else. And some of you are looking at that going, boy, wouldn't it be nice if I could have some chocolate right now? Maybe I should have some chocolate right now. He's not that funny. But keep in mind that you're looking at that and you immediately have that visceral reaction of what it is, a fond memory. We want to capitalize on that as we're creating our content and what we're doing, because again, people are going to have a limited amount of time in order to do what we want them to do. We want to make sure that we're capitalizing on it appropriately. There is a converse to communicating through images, and here's a couple of them. Number one, when you communicate through pictures, make them clickable. One of the things that just truly irritates me is when somebody sends me a funny gag gift and I see it and I go, yeah, I really want to buy that, and I click on the picture. It takes me to the picture I just clicked on. So make sure that all of your pictures have clickable icons. You want them to lead somewhere. So if you click on it, it takes you somewhere. Next, you want to make sure that the key action is above the scroll line. What do I mean by the scroll line? It's that part of the screen that below that, you've got to scroll down to find that information. So the most important stuff has to come first. And then finally, remember, less is more. The more simple it can be, the more beautiful it looks. That's why Apple has made billions and billions of dollars by selling us white boxes. It's because it looks really neat and really innovative. You can leverage that same opportunity by doing what you do, using your own color scheme as well. So we've kind of talked about a lot of different things, but what do you really focus on? Well, when you focus on your content writing, you're turning your questions into content. Focus on your business. What do? What can you offer somebody? What do you do that nobody else does? Focus on your environment, who you are, what your environment is like. You noticed at the beginning of this conversation, I showed you a bit about our environment and our offices. It shows who you are as people. If you follow us on Facebook, our social media manager, Jenna, always posts really interesting and fun things, and now she's getting into Photoshop. She actually put a Spock uniform on our mascot, the bee. Again, why is that relevant? Why is that important? It's because people buy from who they like, and they interact with who they like. So the more you can show about your company culture, the more people are going to realize how valuable you are. Next, you want to focus on your expertise. Okay, so when I say expertise, what do I mean by that? All of you who are listening, all of you in the sound of my voice, are experts in what you do. And I know this because somewhere there is somebody else who has said, they are so awesome, I am going to give them money to continue to have them do what they do. So you are an expert in what you do, and you want to demonstrate that, because again, people buy from who they like, but they don't buy from a dummy and somebody who can't help them. They first figure out if you can help them by figuring out if they like you. The next step is whether or not you can do the job and get them to where they need to be. And then finally, if you can focus on a theme, there's some seasonal themes that you can do. There's some special times of year. Regionally, if you have special events, like here in Minnesota, we have the Minnesota State Fair. It's the second biggest state fair in the country. It's a big deal here in Minnesota. Everybody offers state fair deals. You can offer things like that and offer interesting ways of presenting information to your customers and your clients. You can really take advantage of the season. So these 4 items that I'm showing you here, these are basically the basics of what you want to do. You want to show what you do and how you do it, who you are as people, and how good you are. We'll skip back a little and we'll talk about images and photos. So Google has this really fun tool called Google Images that everybody looks at and thinks, man, this is a free use of images. I just have an encyclopedia of images at my fingertips. Well, not really. There's a couple of different bugaboos about using images and I wanted to make sure that I talked about them since I made such a big deal about visual imagery. So number one, you want to make sure that the images are the right size and the right contrast. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a standard for using images online and then in print, and it's known as DPI. That stands for dots per inch. The standard for web is to have a 72 DPI image. For print, it's 300 DPI. And the way that you can tell if somebody uses the wrong size is if you load a website and then the picture takes 5 seconds to load. Well, that's because it's trying to crank out 4 times as much information that the naked eye really isn't going to be able to see. Next, you also want to avoid copyright issues. I talked about Google Images and how very, very bad that is. How do you know if you can use the photo that you really want to use? Well, the easiest way to do that is by using your own photo. If you're not sure if you have rights to use a photo, just take the photo yourself. Or you can go to a lot of different stock images and stock houses online, and you can buy stock images. So for instance, that coffee cup picture that I've got on screen there, or even the shoehorn, those were images that I bought for 50 cents at a stock photo shop. I really couldn't I just couldn't take the time to go take a picture of a shoehorn. So I bought that for a project that I was working on. Here are a couple of really great places, and I'll give you a few seconds to write these down before I move on, of places that we use at BizzyWeb to get some stock images for our clients. They're very inexpensive, and then you're never going to have any issues with using a photo that you don't have rights to. Since I took a break here to take a sip, I'm going to refresh Twitter and see if we've got any questions. We do have one question asking about stock images. Dave asks, how much does a stock image generally cost? Well, it really depends on the image. If something as simple as the coffee cup that I have there, that was about $1. But if you want to use something like Kim Kardashian or something, that could run you in the thousands and thousands of dollars. Okay, so what exactly does a really good email look like? I'm going to round third and get there, but I also wanted to talk about how do we use videos before we even do that. Well, if we use videos, there's a couple of best practices to get people and entice them to actually consume that video, and I want to list them out for you. Number one, just having a video and presenting a video isn't enough. If we're emailing this video out to somebody, we want to make sure that they understand that there's a video there. We want that little light bulb to go off and go, ooh, a video. I'm interested. Let me open that up. Statistically speaking, the value in doing that is that you get 50% more opens that have a video in it. Why is that? It's because it's very three-dimensional. It takes it from being a two-dimensional thing on screen into a lot of depth, a lot of interesting things. But in order to do that, though, we want to make sure that we keep our videos short and to the point. By and large, the rule of thumb that we would offer is under about 90 to 120 seconds max. And we can use videos for a lot of different things. It's great for product demonstrations. It's also great for promotions or even testimonials. That's my favorite, is testimonials. So we talked a lot about creation, and now we're going to get into curation. What's the difference between the two? Content curation is sharing content from other sources. So you see an example here from Southside Cycling. The 3 pieces of content they're sharing, they actually got from somewhere else. This is from the Boston Globe. This is from the BW Medical Center. And this is even from Velo News. This is absolutely and 100% okay. The key to content curation is actually citing where you got it from, but most importantly, as I said, making it interesting and valuable to the people that you're talking to. Well, where do you find curated content? Well, a lot of different places. The easiest one is to check the news. Something in your industry is relevant and happening right now. There's going to be a lot written about it, and you want to grab it. I follow a lot of blogs, and I hope you do too. Quick pitch: if you aren't following us at BizzyWeb.com/blog, you really should. You can also follow on social media as well. Anybody who's an expert, as you are, if you can hear my voice, you're always going to want to maintain your competitive advantage. So you're always going to be wanting to learn new things. Next is a great tool from Google called Google Alerts. That's where you can enter in a particular keyword, and then every time Google re-indexes the internet, which is generally about every 5 days, they will send you an alert that says, hey, we found somebody who said your keyword, and here's the link and where to find it. Next, you can also subscribe to other people's email lists. Just because they are, you are a subscriber to somebody else's list doesn't mean you can't use it, as long as you cite it and clearly give credit where credit is due. That's really the third most crucial point that I want to give you today, is that curating content is a fantastic way to provide information to your audience, as long as you're doing it in the right way by giving credit to the original author and source. In doing so, you get to create a lot of different fun things, like you get to share pictures that your employees do. Again, that shows your company culture. You can share volunteer pictures. You can share pictures of your customers and clients. You provide that great warm fuzzy experience by showing the value and how much you value your clients and customers by sharing their experiences on social media. About two different kinds of content. We're going to talk next about how do we extend that. And before I do that, I'm going to take a quick stop on Twitter by using the hashtag BizzyWebinar, and we don't have new questions, so fantastic. How do we extend into more things? Well, the easiest thing to do is to share it on, oops, boy, that went sideways on me. Let me stop and see if I can fast forward. Give me just 1 second, folks. I apologize for the inconvenience. I accidentally clicked on the wrong window. So let me find back to where my place was. And start there. And then say, share that. And we're back. Yay. Cool. So as we're talking about how do we extend it, well, we want to take one piece of content and share it in the many different places that we can share it. Well, obviously email, because we've been talking about that tonight, but also on social media, places like Facebook, places like Twitter, or even a sharing tool, which I'll get into in a little bit. So we talked about creating our questions into content. We can similarly create our email into posts. And here's a couple of really great examples. Something like 4 tips on selling more tickets for your next event turns into 4 tips on selling more tickets to your next event. The same strategies that we use to create a really compelling reason to open the email is going to be the same for social posts, and creating an expectation of how much time you're asking for and what the clear call to action is. Couple of fun ones that I brought out here. How do you send your invitations in advance? Well, when do you send your event invitations? Or if you hang a flyer in your store, tips for designing effective event flyers. If you're posting an event on Facebook, how do you promote your event on Facebook? And then next, if you're offering a VIP special pricing, talk about 5 special things that a VIP really wants to feel like a VIP. Again, so hopefully by now you've seen the progression that we talked about, from questions to content to email to posts. And really, we're only talking about the same thing. We're just putting a different spin on it each time. So here's a great example. This is a place called the Grafton Inn, and you see that picture of the porch swing there. It's kind of nice. It's kind of old-timey. It makes you feel a little rested and relaxed. Well, in doing that, in providing that one specific image, what they did is then they shared it on Facebook. So the first one was their email, then they shared it on Facebook. Again, really nice. Really, as you look at that picture, you sort of start imagining what it would be, how nice it would be to actually sit on that bench and look at the world go by. In addition to that, they also shared it on Instagram, and then they shared it on Twitter too. The reason they do that is because we want to create a splash effect. Like if we drop a pebble into a pond, we get all sorts of ripples going out into new and interesting ways. Our customers are not always in one particular place. Chances are good, and one of the reasons why we're recommending that you start with email is that most of your customers will have email. But not all of them are on Twitter, not all of them are on Facebook, not all of them are on LinkedIn. So by using that one piece of content, by sharing that one piece of content that you've created or curated in an email and then adding social media, we get a much bigger pebble drop into a much bigger pond. And at the end of the day, how that translates into real time for us is we get to increase our customer reach. The more hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that have the potential of seeing this are going to create an effect where they can come back to us and start developing a relationship with us. How do you increase your click rates by 158%? Well, again, you're going to start with the simple things by using a share bar. This is something that's pretty unique to Constant Contact, and they have a tool which I think is tremendously cool that you can see right here in the middle of the screen. It doesn't look like much, but if you click that F or that outline of that bird, what happens then is you get taken to those individual, the end user gets taken to their own Facebook page, and a post automatically loads for them that all they have to do is click share, and they've automatically shared it. So you get to actually control the message that your potential customer or potential audience member shares. Different than that is to ask them to follow you on social media. So it looks a little bit redundant, but those two bars are actually doing two very different things. Number one, we're asking people to share. Number two, we're asking them to join us and continue to engage with us on a regular basis. Simplest way to actually get people to do something is by asking them to do something. Ask people to like you on Facebook. Ask people to share information that you're providing. Retweet other people's stuff and they will retweet your stuff, or even pin it on Pinterest. Just by asking a simple question is going to get you a simple answer. This is the social share tool that I talked about, which is pretty unique to Constant Contact. It's one of the reasons why we really like it. So this is a yoga studio that, using the Constant Contact tool in their email marketing, they've actually been able to create a post and include in that social share tool. So what happens, again, if I'm reading that Half Moon Yoga Studio email, I click on the Facebook button in the share bar, I get taken to my Facebook page, my post automatically loads up with this picture and this message, and all I have to do is click publish and I'm home. It's a really fantastic way of expanding the message, but most importantly, making life easier on your customers. And this is what it looks like in real time. It's very consistent. It's clean. It gets the point across, and it gets us to ask our customers and our audience to do that one specific thing. Take $5 off your next class. All you do is click there. So we talked about creating and curating and how to extend it into social media. Well, here's how we get started and the next steps. Remember, as we're creating new and interesting content, we want to absolutely write for them, not for us. And as we're kind of going into go home time, if I can give you a couple of things to really remember and to take away from this, keep it relevant, keep it short, and keep it focused. Now, again, the fun thing about Constant Contact is it's got a lot of really great analytics, so it's able to tell you what your people and your audience is interested in. So you can create something, and you might think it's the most interesting thing in the world, but if nobody reads it, it's not doing you any good from a business perspective. Using analytics gives you the opportunity to tweak your message and to constantly refine it so that your audience is constantly engaged with you. So again, here, I talked about this before, but I wanted to bring it back as we're leaving tonight. 3 easy steps for creating content. Number 1, begin with your last customer question. What was the last frequently asked question that you were asked? Start there, and then find a picture, write a paragraph, and create a call to action. Picture, paragraph, call to action, and you're home. Thank you all for joining us. I did tell you that I was going to give you a special offer, but before I did do that, I wanted to give you a couple of resources. So here at BizzyWeb, we do these webinars every Wednesday at noon. You can go to BizzyWeb.com/events. We do webinars from anything under the sun, and it's just on our. You can also get it on our homepage as well at BizzyWeb.com. That $5 email place where you're going to get it, I'm going to give you the link in a sec, but more importantly than that, there's a lot of really great marketing resources available at Constant Contact. So thanks everybody for staying with me, and then most importantly, as I'm leaving, that $5 tip that I talked about as a thank you for listening so much and hopefully laughing politely to my jokes. Here's how you get it. You go to https:/constantcontact.com/event-meyer. That's going to take you to a BizzyWeb specific page, and this is something that we're only offering for people who come to our events. You get $5 a month, and that's out the door. That's everything under the sun that you're going to want, and it's really a beautiful thing. It doesn't matter the size of your list. It doesn't matter how many times you're going to be sending out emails. It's just $5 out the door for the first 3 months. The value, I think, that's really crucially important for you as a small business owner is where else are you going to find a really great marketing tool for $15 for 3 months to try it out. Give it a shot. Visit us at constantcontact.com/event-meyer. So that's all I've got. Thanks everybody for joining us, not only tonight with me, but also throughout the entire day of digital. And I hopefully you really enjoyed everything that you saw. If you want to visit us, we'd love to see you at BizzyWeb.com. If you're interested in hearing more about us, this presentation will be posted to YouTube as soon as I click the stop broadcast button. Thanks everybody for joining us. Again, my name is Trygve with BizzyWeb, and we'll see you tomorrow at our BizzyWebinar Wednesday at noon. Good night, everybody.